Hello, everyone. Welcome to the latest webinar from the Safety and Security Event Series and 19 group. My name is Mark Tilley. I'm going to be your host for today's session, and we're delighted, as you can see by your surroundings today, to be hosting this session live from the Pixel Depot in Surrey, which is the home of digiLED. So we're very, very excited to be utilising this brilliant space that you can see behind us here. Today is the first webinar in our new series for Pro Integration Future Europe, which is a new event coming to the NEC Birmingham in April 2026 for the AV industry. So we're very excited to start building momentum towards that show, and today is the first step along that road. So thank you for joining us and being with us today. Today we're talking about rewiring the future and how technology is going to be transforming the AV landscape. And we're really excited to bring this discussion to you today and be joined by three of the industry's most shining lights, if you'll forgive the pun, which I wrote just this morning. So,
very good.
Thank you. A quick bit of admin. As you'll see on the right-hand side of your screen, there is a chat and a Q&A function. So any questions that you want to pose to our panel, not to me, hopefully, please feel free to share them with us, and then we'll save some time towards the end of the broadcast so we can get those answered as well. But moving on now, I want to give the panel a chance to introduce themselves. So you guys obviously will do a much better job at that yourselves than I will. So if we want to just start with you, Ross, if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and your company.
So I'm Ross Noonan. I've worked in tech since I left school, so nearly 20 years. Started in fire and security, so working for a company that did testing under the LPCB standards testing, and then moved into AV sort of 15 years ago. Waterproof televisions for high-end bathrooms, things like that, then into creative projection, where I met some of these people, and then for the last sort of 7-8 years I've been working with LED displays. This is digiLED, so this is the home of digiLED where we're in now, and we specialise in designing and delivering very high-end bespoke LED screen projects, so very much custom-made solutions for very creative applications.
Very good.
That's me.
Sanj?
Thanks, Mark. My name is Sanj Surati. I'm an innovation consultant. I run a company called Tiger Heart. How I got into the AV space, initially, I used to be a rock star. I used to be in a band. Used to, yeah. Lived in the back of a van for like years, and then the band was doing really well, but we kind of weren't, but we kind of were. And what I noticed, one of the reasons why we did well is because there was this new thing called the internet, which was something a lot of businesses didn't really understand at the time. A lot of you guys watching probably take for granted. And the music industry was changing. So I kind of saw this relationship between human behavior and digital and how it was changing, evolving human habits. I got really excited about that. And so started working in the music industry as a digital consultant, and then that led me working with lots of different types of technology. Some of that tech was specific to the music sector, but then I started working in AV about 2005. Started doing like projection, started working with like holographic projection, and then worked on a project that some people still remember for a company called Musion. We did a hologram of Tupac at Coachella, and then that kind of changed my life, and from that, again, just really excited about how we as human beings are working with these new and exciting technologies. And within Tiger Heart, that's what we do, is we work with emerging tech for our clients, and we help them express their narratives in new and exciting ways.
Brilliant. Thank you. Jess?
So I'm Jess Cooper, and I currently work at a company called Pixel Artworks, and it's a creative agency. So I'm kind of coming at this discussion from an agency lens and a creative lens. And I used to work at another immersive AV company, and also been in AV since school, which obviously is a very short time ago. I used to work more with projection, immersive projection spaces, and kind of working across the AV and the technology, but also the content that you have on those screens as well.
Brilliant. Awesome. Well, listen, like I said, we're very pleased to have all three of you here. I also wanted to just one last big thank you to Ross and for digiLED for hosting today's session. It's obviously, as you can see, a very cool place to be doing a webinar from, and not just the laptop at my office. So this is definitely a nice place to be doing it on a Wednesday morning. let's dive in. I want to start with a question for the whole panel. How would you each describe the rewiring that you see currently happening in the AV world? What's changing most in the way that people experience and interact with digital content? If I start with you, Russ.
I was actually going to go last.
Okay,
these guys definitely probably deliver more of that full package, particularly Jess's team. I think you mentioned internet earlier on. One of the things that we're really starting to see is where the lines between IT and AV are really starting to blur. Everything's running on networks now. We're seeing lots of manufacturers, suppliers creating, monitoring platforms or platforms that bring all these different technologies together. And the ultimate end goal of that is trying to make it easier for the end user, whether that be managing the space, whether that be running content in the space, manipulating content in the space, servicing. You've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of potential components in that chain, and you really do need them all talking together. So that's probably one of the sort of biggest sort of changes or developments we're seeing, certainly in the last few years, is people trying to bring all these platforms together to make it more intuitive for the end user, because they don't want to be spending ages trying to figure out how to get stuff running or fault find. And that's certainly a big change that we're seeing.
Yeah. Sanj, what's your take?
I think the more like things change, the more they stay the same. I mean, there's always new technologies that appear, and everyone gets really excited by them. And that's a great thing, because it inspires people, gets them talking about how do we, communicate the story through this fantastic thing that everyone's really excited about. For us, it's always about starting with the story, trying to understand what it is that they want to communicate, how they want to communicate it, and then the last thing is like why they want to communicate it. Usually it's, the why is down to that, they want to get more eyes onto their brand, or they want people to listen to their story. But then once we kind of hone in on that, then we can start working with our clients and getting them to be as expressive as possible with these new technologies. So to answer your question, like, has that changed? That hasn't changed, but the speed of how people are trying to apply their stories to these new technologies is starting to create a little bit of a fatigue. So it's just trying to just sit down with the client, get them to take a deep breath and really think about where the opportunities and where the value is, and helping them to get as much value out of that as possible.
Yeah. And for me, I think Sanj just kind of said this, people are getting fatigued with some of this stuff sometimes, but there are so many screens and people are so used to it, on your commute and in your office and in retail spaces. So yeah, it's about maybe trying to be a bit smarter and a bit clever with these technologies now. So rather than it's the biggest screen or it's the brightest, it's how does the content on here make this feel really unusual and playful. So thinking about being a little bit cleverer with the spaces, and also the connected thing. So from an IT perspective, but also just like if you think about an office, for example, people actually want all of the kit and the hardware and stuff to be connected. So the audio has to be very connected to the screens. It's not just a single screen anymore. It's maybe there's a scent machine in it. So you smell something and then you see something, and then you go upstairs and there's a similar type of technology and similar type of content. So bringing a whole space together, kind of creating a really holistic experience now. So people can't think about things individually. It has to be really, everything is all together.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And again, one for all three of you, if we go straight back to you, Jess, if you had to pick a technology or a trend that's most shaping your day-to-day projects at the moment, what would that be?
So these are quite contradictory, because everybody really, really wants LED at the moment, because you can have it in every environment, with projection. If it's got any light in that space, you're stuffed, you can't use it. So everybody wants bright LED, and it's works absolutely everywhere. But also people are wanting kind of more subtle ways of bringing in screen displays. So it's kind of like figuring out how to marry those two things up. How do you have a really big, bright, beautiful LED screen, like the massive one you've got on the back of the wall, but it doesn't necessarily take over the whole experience, it adds to it. So people wanting kind of, again, more like playful and surprising and delightful experiences, that's what we're wanting. That we're finding loads and loads of people asking for, it looks like it's going to go one direction, but then actually you surprise someone and it goes somewhere else. Just showing people something new everybody just wants something new and different.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest things that I've noticed recently, because there is, as you mentioned, Jess, there's like so much of this LED and so much of an appetite for LED. It's just ensuring that they get as much of a seamless experience when you're fusing all of these technologies together. There's a lot of projects we worked on the last 24 months where they're what we call like cleanup projects. They've invested in all of this technology, but for some reason it's not collaborating in the way the client wants it. So that's the first thing. The second thing as well is control. Once you do build these environments, how much control do you have in them? Whether it's the sound that you're working with, whether it's the LED, the content, the servers, the show control. Sometimes something is built, but it isn't really kind of tested on a sort of day-to-day with the client. So they're kind of left with this fantastic thing that can do all these things, but they just don't know how to get the best out of it from a control perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I'll loop back to what I said in the first question, which is going last. There's a reason for that, which is that when you work at the screen end, the bit that actually delivers what these guys do, that's a good and a bad thing. Obviously, if it goes wrong, the screen, then we're always to blame, even if there's 100 components in that chain. So you think I'd talk about the screen, but actually one of the things that we're seeing emerging at the moment is that because these LEDs are getting larger in volume or more complex in their application, they're creeping into immersive projection spaces and custom retail solutions where people are fitting them into strange fixtures, etc., transparent windows, all these different applications. I'm actually going to talk a little bit more about like the sustainability side, which I know a lot of people in this industry, I think, see sustainability as a little bit of a gimmick, particularly in tech, which is that what we do is quite damaging for the environment. There's no hiding from that. We use a lot of electronic components, a lot of materials, a lot of instances. These products go in for a few years, then they're thrown away, which is terrible. We're seeing a big demand for, particularly in LED, and the bigger they get, the more power they use. People wanting the tools to be able to quantify, particularly power, is a really big one. How much power is it using? Is there a way that we can reduce that power consumption? And in particular, what are we doing with this space when it's not being used is a really important one. So we've developed lots of tools, Zeus or digiLED Zeus being one of those, which is helping people quantify the power that those screens are using. Different kinds of content can use different amounts of power, different brightness of the screen, different pixel pitches. But fundamentally, when you shut your doors at night, what are you doing with those screens, and are they consuming lots of power? And being able to present that as a quantifiable tool to people is really powerful, because it's ultimately one of the biggest parts of the AV project, and therefore it does use a lot of power in some instances. So empowering people with tools to be able to measure that and make savings or raise awareness to it is really important. And I'm sure we'll talk about digiLED Zeus a bit later on, but that's a really important one. And that's really being helped by all these platforms trying to bring the experience into a more digestible, easy to use platform, because it is ultimately one platform at the end of the day. It's a solution delivered by lots of people.
And just on that sustainability piece, you obviously mentioned that some companies are seeing it as a bit of a gimmick. The reporting that you're able to do, are you finding that that's having a positive effect? Are people reacting positively to that in the greater kind of sustainability piece?
Yeah, I think it's probably worth just sort of digging into it a little bit more, which is that there's a lot of like promise of we use less materials here and we recycle boxes and offices talking about recycling toilet water and all these things. They're really difficult to measure at the end of the day. And do they really make a big difference? I don't know. I'm not an expert in that. With digiLED Zeus, what we've tried to do is create a tool where when you're not using your screen, which is often overlooked, it shouldn't be using any power. It sounds like a really simple thing, just like flipping a switch off. It is almost as simple as that. Turning off an LED screen is relatively simple. You might have 100 power feeds. You can put those on a network and you can tell them to turn off. That's not a problem. Turning them back on is where the problem lies. These are big industrial machines. They suffer from a thing called inrush current. And a lot of the time that can cause components to pop, power supplies, breakers to trip. And so they're just left on. And they're doing nothing. This is outside of hours. And so by creating a tool that solves that relatively simple problem of turning them off, but turning them back on reliably, and then being able to say, well, you've shut your doors at 10 o'clock and you've opened them at 8, you were spending X and you're now saving Y, is a really powerful, simple tool that they can digest, and they can go back and they can
quantifiable.
Yeah, and you can use that to offset carbon credits. You can use it to go back and say, we've saved £100,000 this year. Can we reroute that into a different project? So it's a really easy